The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Medical Center hummed their familiar tune as Dr. Marcus Chen made his way down the sterile corridor of the intensive care unit. It was 2:47 a.m. on a frigid February night in Chicago, and the wind howled against the windows like a living thing, desperate to get inside. Marcus had been a resident physician for 18 months now, and the exhaustion had become his constant companion, a heavy blanket he wore every single day. His white coat was wrinkled, his stethoscope hung loosely around his neck, and dark circles had taken permanent residence beneath his brown eyes. The coffee he'd consumed 3 hours ago had long since worn off, leaving him in that peculiar state between wakefulness and dreams, where everything felt slightly unreal. "Dr. Chen," a nurse's voice cut through his fog. Sarah Mitchell, a veteran nurse with 20 years of experience, approached him with concern etched on her face. "We need you in room 4112. The burn patient, she's asking for a doctor." Marcus nodded, though his body protested the movement. Room 4112. He knew it well. The 17-year-old girl who'd been brought in 3 weeks ago after a devastating apartment fire in the South Side. Third-degree burns, covering 40% of her body. The kind of injuries that made even seasoned medical professionals flinch. He'd been avoiding that room when he could. Not because he didn't care. God knows he cared too much. But because every time he walked in there, he saw his own sister's face. Maya had been 17 once, full of dreams and laughter, before the car accident took her away 5 years ago. The guilt of not being there that night still ate at him in the quiet hours. The door to room 412 creaked open, and the antiseptic smell mixed with something else, the faint odor of healing wounds and medicinal ointments. The girl lay in the hospital bed, her body wrapped in bandages, her face partially obscured by gauze. Only her dark eyes were fully visible, and they tracked his movement as he entered. "Hi, Jasmine," Marcus said softly, forcing warmth into his exhausted voice. "I heard you wanted to see a doctor. How are you feeling?" Jasmine Rodriguez had been a high school junior, with a scholarship to Northwestern University waiting for her. She'd been sleeping when the fire started, an electrical fault in the ancient wiring of her family's apartment building. Her mother and younger brother had made it out. Her father had gone back in for her and never came back out. She'd been pulled from the rubble with burns and a broken heart. "It hurts," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Everything hurts so much." Marcus checked her vitals on the monitor, reviewing her medication schedule. She was already on the maximum safe dose of pain medication. There wasn't much more he could do medically, but he found himself pulling up a chair anyway, something he rarely had time for during his brutal shifts. "I know," he said quietly. "I wish I could make it stop hurting. Your body is healing, but I know that doesn't make it easier right now." Tears welled in Jasmine's visible eye. "My dad. They said my dad didn't make it. He came back for me. If I hadn't been sleeping so deeply, if I'd woken up sooner." Marcus felt his chest tighten. How many times had he told himself the same thing about Maya? If only he'd answered her call that night. If only he'd driven her to that party instead of studying for his medical school entrance exam. If only, if only, if only. "It wasn't your fault," Marcus said, though he knew the words would sound hollow. They always did when people said them to him. "Your father loved you. He made a choice because he loved you. That's not a burden for you to carry. It's a testament to how much you mattered to him." Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, her breathing ragged. Outside, an ambulance siren wailed in the distance, bringing more broken people to this place of healing and heartbreak. "Will I ever be normal again?" she asked. "Will I ever look in the mirror and see myself?" Marcus swallowed hard. He'd been trained to be honest with patients, but he'd also learned that hope was sometimes the most powerful medicine. "You'll have scars," he said carefully, "but scars are proof that you survived, and with time, with physical therapy, with the support we're going to give you, you're going to have a life again. It won't be the same life you had planned, but it can still be a good life, a meaningful life." "Do you really believe that?" Jasmine's voice cracked. Or are you just saying what you're supposed to say? The question hit Marcus harder than he expected. Did he believe it? He thought about his own life, how he'd thrown himself into medicine after Maya died, working himself to the bone, barely sleeping, barely living. Was that healing? Or was that just another kind of damage? I'm trying to believe it, Marcus admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. For you, and for me both. They sat in silence for a while, the only sounds the beeping of monitors and the distant voices of the night staff. Marcus knew he should leave. There were other patients, other tasks, other fires to put out, but something kept him rooted to that chair. Would you... Jasmine's voice was so quiet, he almost missed it. Would you stay, just for a little while? I don't want to be alone right now. Marcus looked at his watch. 3:15 a.m. He had rounds to complete, paperwork to file, and his shift didn't end until 7. But looking at this girl, this survivor who reminded him so much of the sister he'd lost, he found himself nodding. I'll stay, he said. And so he did, sitting in that uncomfortable hospital chair, occasionally adjusting her IV or checking her vitals, but mostly just being present. He told her about Chicago, about the lake in summer, about the little Thai restaurant near the hospital that made the best pad Thai he'd ever tasted. Small things, normal things, the kind of future-focused conversation that reminded her that there was a world outside these walls, waiting for her to heal enough to rejoin it. At some point, Jasmine's breathing evened out, and Marcus realized she'd fallen asleep. He should have left then. He needed to leave. But his own exhaustion had caught up with him, and his eyes grew heavy. Just 5 minutes, he told himself, just a 5-minute rest, and then he'd get back to work. His eyes closed. Marcus jerked awake to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of voices in the hallway. His neck ached from the awkward angle he'd slept in, and for a disorienting moment he couldn't remember where he was. Then reality crashed back. The hospital room, Jasmine still sleeping in the bed, and the horrifying realization that bright sunlight meant he'd slept far longer than 5 minutes. He grabbed his phone. 8:43 a.m. No, Marcus muttered, scrambling to his feet. He'd missed the end of his shift. He'd missed morning rounds. He'd missed Dr. Chen. Marcus spun around to find Dr. Patricia Morrison standing in the doorway. The attending physician was a woman in her 50s, with steel-grey hair pulled back in a tight bun, and an expression that could freeze water. She was known for running a tight ship, and having zero tolerance for resident doctors who didn't meet her exacting standards. "Dr. Morrison, I can explain," Marcus started, his heart hammering. "My office, now." Her voice was ice. Marcus glanced at Jasmine, who was beginning to stir, then followed Dr. Morrison out into the hallway. Other staff members averted their eyes as he passed, never a good sign. The walk to Dr. Morrison's office felt like a death march. The office was small and cluttered with medical journals, family photos, and a coffee maker that looked older than Marcus. Dr. Morrison closed the door and gestured for him to sit. Instead of sitting behind her desk in a position of authority, she took the chair next to him, which somehow made Marcus even more nervous. "Do you know what time I arrived this morning?" Dr. Morrison asked. "No, ma'am. 6 a.m. I came in early because we had a crisis in the ER, a multi-vehicle accident on the Dan Ryan Expressway. I needed all hands on deck, and I was informed that one of my residents was missing. Do you understand how that looks? How that puts the entire team in jeopardy?" Marcus felt shame burn through him. "I understand. There's no excuse. I sat down with a patient, and I fell asleep. It was unprofessional and irresponsible, and I take full responsibility." Dr. Morrison studied him for a long moment. "You sat with Jasmine Rodriguez." It wasn't a question, but Marcus nodded anyway. "Nurse Mitchell told me she found you there when she did her 6 a.m. rounds. She said Jasmine was sleeping peacefully for the first time since she was admitted. She also said you looked like you hadn't slept in a week." Dr. Morrison leaned back in her chair. How many hours have you worked in the past 7 days, Dr. Chen? Marcus did a quick mental calculation. 94 hours. And how many hours of sleep? I'm not sure. Maybe 20. Maybe 20, Dr. Morrison repeated. You're running yourself into the ground, and it's affecting your judgment. Falling asleep in a patient's room isn't just unprofessional, it's dangerous. What if there had been an emergency? What if Jasmine had needed immediate care? I know. You're right. It won't happen again. No, it won't. Dr. Morrison's expression softened slightly, because I'm ordering you to take the next 48 hours off. No arguments, no negotiations. You're going home and you're going to sleep. Marcus blinked in surprise. Dr. Morrison, I can't just... You can and you will. Burnout doesn't just hurt you, Dr. Chen. It hurts every patient you treat. You're no good to anyone if you're running on empty. She paused, then added more gently, I read your file when you started here. I know about your sister. I know you feel like you have something to prove, but martyring yourself won't bring her back, and it won't make you a better doctor. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His throat tightened, and he found himself unable to speak. Go home, Dr. Morrison said. That's an order. Marcus stood on shaky legs, nodded, and turned to leave. As he reached the door, Dr. Morrison spoke again. Dr. Chen, what you did for Jasmine last night, staying with her, being present, that's the kind of doctor I want on my team. Just don't lose yourself in the process of saving others. Marcus managed a weak smile. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. He made his way back to room 412 to collect his stethoscope. Jasmine was awake now, and Sarah was adjusting her bandages. Hey, Doc, Jasmine said, her voice stronger than last night. Did I get you in trouble? Nothing I didn't deserve, Marcus replied. How are you feeling this morning? Better, actually. I had good dreams for the first time in weeks. I dreamed about my dad. He was smiling. Her visible eye glistened with tears, but they seemed different from last night's tears. Less desperate, more bittersweet. That's good, Marcus said softly. Hold on to that. Will you come back? Jasmine asked. After you're rested. I'd like to talk more about the future and stuff. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a loosening of the tight knot he'd been carrying for so long. Yeah, he said. I'll come back. I promise. As Marcus left the hospital and stepped out into the brutal Chicago winter, the cold air hit him like a slap. The city was fully awake now, people rushing to work, cars honking, the constant motion of life going on. He realized he'd been so lost in his own grief and exhaustion that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be part of the world. He pulled out his phone and stared at it for a long moment before opening his contacts. His mother's number sat there, untouched, for 3 months. They'd drifted apart after Maya died, both of them drowning in their own guilt and sorrow, neither knowing how to reach for the other. His thumb hovered over the call button. Not today, he thought, but soon. The drive to his small apartment in Wicker Park was a blur. Marcus barely remembered parking or climbing the stairs to his third-floor walk-up. The apartment was a mess. Take-out containers, medical journals scattered everywhere, laundry piling up in the corner. He'd been living like a ghost in his own space. He collapsed onto his bed, fully clothed, and within seconds, sleep claimed him. Marcus slept for 14 hours straight and woke up feeling like he'd been reborn. His body still ached, but the fog in his mind had lifted. He showered, shaved, and actually looked at himself in the mirror for the first time in what felt like months. The man staring back at him looked younger, less haunted. He spent the next day cleaning his apartment, doing laundry, and eating real food instead of vending machine snacks and hospital cafeteria mystery meals. He even called his mother. The conversation was awkward at first, both of them dancing around the elephant in the room, but by the end they'd agreed to have dinner together next week. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. By the second evening of his mandated break, Marcus found himself restless. He'd caught up on sleep, his apartment was clean, and he'd already binge-watched half a season of a show he didn't care about. His thoughts kept drifting back to the hospital, to his patients, to Jasmine. He decided to take a walk. The temperature had risen slightly, a balmy 28 degrees that felt tropical compared to the previous week's polar vortex. He bundled up and headed out, his feet carrying him on autopilot through the familiar streets of his neighborhood. Before he realized it, he was standing outside St. Catherine's Medical Center. "I'm not on the clock," he said aloud to himself, as if that justified what he was about to do. "I'm just visiting a patient, that's allowed." The night receptionist recognized him and waved him through. The hospital had a different energy at night, quieter, more intimate. Marcus made his way to the ICU and found Nurse Sarah at the station. "Dr. Chen, I thought you were on mandatory rest," she said with a knowing smile. "I am. I'm just here as a visitor, not a doctor. How's Jasmine doing?" Sarah's expression grew serious. "She's having a rough night. The pain is bad, and she's been asking for you." Marcus's heart sank. "What's her current pain management protocol?" "We've done everything we can within the prescribed limits. Doctor, Morrison was in earlier and assessed her, but—" Sarah hesitated. "Sometimes medicine can only do so much, you know." Marcus knew. He knew too well. He found Jasmine's room and knocked softly before entering. She was awake, her body tense with discomfort, tears streaming from her visible eye. "Please don't leave," she whispered when she saw him. "It hurts so much, and I'm so scared. What if it never gets better? What if—" Hey, Marcus said, pulling up the familiar chair beside her bed. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. But you're supposed to be off. Sarah told me they made you take time off because of me, not because of you, because I needed it. And I did. I feel better than I have in months, but right now, you need someone. And I'm here. Not as your doctor, but as a friend." Jasmine's breathing was ragged. "Tell me about your sister, the one you mentioned before. What was she like?" Marcus tensed. He never talked about Maya. Not to colleagues, not to friends, certainly not to patients. But sitting there in the dim light of the hospital room, with this brave young woman fighting through her own tragedy, the words began to flow. Her name was Maya. She was 17, same as you. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She was obsessed with animals, especially dogs. She had this laugh that was too loud for her small body. She used to text me terrible jokes when she knew I was studying just to annoy me. Marcus smiled at the memory. The night she died, she called me. She wanted a ride home from a party, but I was studying for a huge exam, and I told her to call our mom or get an Uber. I was annoyed that she'd interrupted me." Marcus's voice cracked. "She got a ride with a friend who'd been drinking. They crashed on Lakeshore Drive. Maya died at the scene. I was 30 minutes away studying organic chemistry, annoyed at my little sister for bothering me. And now she's gone, and I can never take it back. I can never answer that call." Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. "Is that why you became a doctor? To save the people you couldn't save before?" "Maybe. Probably. I don't know anymore. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I saved enough people, maybe it would balance the scales somehow, but it doesn't work that way. There are no scales. There's just life and death and the space in between where we do the best we can." "Your sister wouldn't want you to destroy yourself," Jasmine said softly. "Would she?" Marcus laughed, a wet sound caught between grief and something lighter. "No. She'd tell me I was being an idiot. She'd make a terrible joke about it and then force me to watch some ridiculous reality TV show with her until I felt better. My dad would tell me the same thing," Jasmine said. "He'd tell me that he didn't die so I could give up. He died so I could live. And that means really living, not just surviving." They sat together in the darkness, two wounded people sharing their scars, and somehow the pain seemed more bearable for both of them. Marcus didn't notice the figure standing in the doorway until a throat cleared behind him. He turned, and his heart stopped. Douglas Blackwell, CEO of St. Catherine's Medical Center, stood in the doorway. He was a tall man in his 60s, with silver hair and a reputation for being brilliant, demanding, and utterly terrifying. Marcus had seen him exactly twice during his residency, Once at orientation, and once when he'd walked through the ICU like a general inspecting troops. "Mr. Blackwell," Marcus stammered, standing so quickly he nearly knocked over the chair. "I was just—" "Sit down, Dr. Chen," Blackwell said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He stepped into the room fully, and Marcus realized there was someone with him, a woman in her 30s with dark curly hair and kind eyes. "This is my daughter Rachel," Blackwell said. "Rachel, this is Dr. Marcus Chen and his patient, Jasmine Rodriguez." Marcus was completely confused. Why was the CEO of the hospital doing rounds at 10 p.m., and why had he brought his daughter? Blackwell turned to Jasmine. "Ms. Rodriguez, I wanted to come by and personally check on your progress. I've been following your case closely. You've shown remarkable strength." Jasmine seemed as confused as Marcus. "Thank you, sir. I also wanted you to meet my daughter because I think your stories might resonate with each other." Blackwell glanced at Rachel, who stepped forward. "Hi, Jasmine," Rachel said softly. 12 years ago, I was in a fire too. A dormitory fire at my college. I had burns over 35% of my body." She pulled back her sleeve, revealing scarred skin. "I know what you're going through. The pain, the fear, the feeling that your life is over before it really began." Jasmine stared, and Marcus felt his own shock reflected on her face. "It was the worst period of my life," Rachel continued, "but it was also the beginning of something I never expected. I became a counselor specializing in trauma recovery. I help burn survivors, accident victims, people who've lost parts of themselves and need to learn how to be whole again. Not the same, but whole in a new way." She pulled up a chair on the other side of Jasmine's bed. "Your father loved you enough to run into fire for you. That kind of love doesn't disappear. It stays with you, in your bones, in your heart. And you honor it by surviving, by healing, by choosing to live fully despite the scars." Tears streamed down Jasmine's face, but her visible eye was bright with something Marcus hadn't seen before. Hope. Douglas Blackwell turned to Marcus. "Dr. Chen, could you step outside with me for a moment?" Marcus's stomach dropped. This was it. He was about to be fired. He followed Blackwell into the hallway, his mind racing through explanations and apologies. "Do you know why I'm here at 10 p.m. on a Thursday?" Blackwell asked. "No, sir. Because 12 years ago, when Rachel was fighting for her life, I learned something important. I was so focused on running this hospital, on the business side, on efficiency and numbers, that I'd forgotten why we do this work. A resident physician, a young woman named Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who's now your head night nurse, sat with Rachel for hours when she was in pain and terrified. She wasn't on duty, she didn't have to be there, but she was." Marcus's eyes widened. "That human connection, that compassion, it saved my daughter's life as much as any surgery or medication did. And it changed me. I made it my mission to create a hospital culture that values that kind of care, not just technical excellence." Blackwell met Marcus's eyes. "Dr. Morrison told me what happened. She told me you've been working yourself to death, that you fell asleep in a patient's room out of sheer exhaustion. Sir, Blackwell held up a hand. "She also told me that in that moment you gave Jasmine Rodriguez something no amount of medicine could provide. You gave her your presence, your humanity, your own pain shared in solidarity. That's the kind of doctor I want in this hospital." Marcus couldn't speak. "But Dr. Morrison is also right that you can't help anyone if you destroy yourself in the process. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take 1 more week off, paid. You're going to see our staff therapist, Dr. James Harrison, who specializes in helping medical professionals deal with trauma and burnout. And when you come back, you're going to work reasonable hours, and you're going to remember that being a good doctor isn't about martyrdom, it's about sustainable compassion." "I don't know what to say," Marcus managed. "Say you'll take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Say you'll let people help you the way you help your patients. Say you'll honor your sister's memory by living fully, not just surviving." Blackwell's expression softened. I see myself in you 12 years ago, Dr. Chen. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't wait for a crisis to realize that you're human too. 3 months later, spring had arrived in Chicago, with that particular blend of beauty and unpredictability that characterized the city. One day would be sunny and 70 degrees, the next would bring sleet. But on this particular Saturday afternoon, the weather had cooperated. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the promise of new beginnings in the air. Marcus stood outside the physical therapy center adjacent to St. Catherine's, waiting. He'd been coming here every Saturday for the past month, ever since Jasmine had been moved from the ICU to the rehabilitation wing. Today was special, though. Today was the day she'd been cleared to take her first trip outside the hospital grounds. The door opened, and Jasmine emerged in a wheelchair pushed by her mother, Maria Rodriguez. Jasmine's face was still scarred, still healing, but she was smiling, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. She wore a soft, long-sleeved shirt and comfortable pants, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. It was the first time Marcus had seen her in regular clothes instead of a hospital gown. "Dr. Chen!" she called out, waving. "Just Marcus today," he reminded her, as he had been for weeks. "No doctors allowed on Saturday adventures." Maria gave him a warm hug. She'd been at the hospital every single day since the fire, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, advocating fiercely for her daughter. She and Marcus had developed a rapport built on shared exhaustion and mutual respect. "Thank you for doing this," Maria said. "She's been talking about it all week." "My pleasure. Where's Carlos?" "Soccer practice," Maria said with a roll of her eyes. "That boy lives for soccer. But he made me promise to take pictures." Rachel Blackwell appeared from around the corner, carrying a bag of supplies. She'd been working with Jasmine twice a week as a volunteer counselor, and the two had formed a powerful bond. "Ready for this?" Rachel asked Jasmine. "So ready. I've been dreaming about deep dish pizza and actually tasting it, not just smelling it from the hospital." They'd planned this carefully, a trip to Lou Malnati's pizzeria in Lincoln Park, then a walk through the park if Jasmine felt up to it. Small things, normal things, the kind of activities that reminded her she was still a 17-year-old girl with a life ahead of her. The restaurant was busy with the Saturday lunch crowd, but they'd reserved a quiet corner booth. As they settled in, Marcus watched Jasmine take in everything. The sounds of conversation and laughter, the smell of garlic and tomatoes, the warmth of people simply living their lives. When the pizza arrived, Jasmine took her first bite and closed her eyes. "Oh my God," she murmured. "I forgot how good real food tastes." They ate and talked, sharing stories. Maria told embarrassing tales about Jasmine as a little girl. Rachel shared updates about her work with a new support group for burn survivors. Marcus found himself talking about his upcoming dinner with his mother, the third they'd had since that first awkward phone call. "How's therapy going?" Jasmine asked him directly without preamble. She'd developed a habit of cutting through pretense. "It's hard," Marcus admitted. "Dr. Harrison keeps making me talk about feelings and guilt and all the stuff I've been trying not to think about for 5 years. But it's helping. I'm sleeping better. I'm not having as many nightmares." "About your sister?" "Yeah, and about all the patients I couldn't save, all the ways I've failed." He paused, then added, "But Dr. Harrison is helping me see that I'm not responsible for things outside my control. I'm only responsible for showing up and doing my best. That's enough." "Is it really enough?" Jasmine asked quietly. "When your best isn't enough to save someone?" It was the question that had haunted Marcus for years. He considered it carefully before answering. I think it has to be, because the alternative is believing that we're gods who can control life and death, and we're not. We're just people, flawed, limited, exhausted people who are trying our best in a world that doesn't always cooperate. The wins don't erase the losses, but the losses don't invalidate the wins either. We just have to keep showing up." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "When I was in your position, Jasmine, I thought my scars meant my life was over. I thought no one would ever see past them to the person I was inside. But you know what I learned? The people who matter do see past them, and the scars themselves, they're not the end of your story, they're just one chapter. You get to write the rest. After lunch, they made their way to Lincoln Park. The trees were budding with new leaves, and the lake sparkled in the afternoon sun. Marcus pushed Jasmine's wheelchair along the path, while Maria and Rachel walked slightly ahead, giving them space to talk. "I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do," Jasmine said. "When I get better, I mean, after physical therapy, after I finish high school." "Northwestern is still waiting for you," Marcus reminded her. "Your scholarship is secure." "I know, but I'm not sure I want to study business anymore. I'm thinking maybe something in healthcare, not a doctor necessarily, but something where I can help people who are going through what I went through, maybe a patient advocate or a counselor like Rachel." Marcus smiled. "I think you'd be amazing at that." "Really? You don't think it's just because of the fire? Like I'm making decisions based on trauma instead of real passion?" "I think trauma and passion aren't mutually exclusive. Some of the best nurses, doctors, and counselors I know got into this field because of personal experience. It gives you empathy that can't be taught. Just make sure you're healed enough first. Don't make my mistake of trying to save everyone else while you're still broken inside." They sat by the lake for a while, watching sailboats drift across the water. Families played nearby, dogs chased frisbees, joggers passed by with determined expressions. Life in all its messy, beautiful complexity. "Marcus," Jasmine said quietly, "thank you for staying that night, for not leaving when I asked you not to. I don't think I would have made it through without knowing someone understood." "You're stronger than you know," Marcus said, "but you're welcome. And thank you for reminding me that being a doctor isn't just about fixing bodies. It's about seeing the whole person, their pain, their fear, their hope." As the afternoon wore on, they made their way back to the hospital. Jasmine was visibly tired but glowing with the satisfaction of a milestone achieved. She'd left the hospital. She'd eaten pizza. She'd felt the sun on her face and seen the lake she'd grown up beside. Small victories, but profound ones. At the entrance to St. Catherine's, they found Douglas Blackwell waiting for them. He'd made a habit of checking in on Jasmine personally, something that still surprised the staff. "How was the pizza?" he asked with a smile. "Life-changing," Jasmine replied. "Thank you for everything, Mr. Blackwell. You and Rachel and everyone here, you saved my life." "You saved your own life," Blackwell corrected gently. "We just provided the tools. Now you have to keep saving it, every single day, by choosing to move forward." As Maria took Jasmine back to her room, Blackwell pulled Marcus aside. "Dr. Morrison tells me you've been doing excellent work. You're still pushing yourself, but you're also taking care of yourself. That's growth." "I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. That's all any of us can do." Blackwell paused, then added, "I wanted you to know that we're creating a new program here at St. Catherine's, a holistic care initiative that focuses on the psychological and emotional needs of patients alongside their physical treatment. I'd like you to be part of the development team when you finish your residency." Marcus felt his chest swell with emotion. "I'd be honored." "Good. Because we need doctors who understand that healing isn't just about bodies, it's about hearts and minds, too." That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment with his laptop open. He'd been putting this off for weeks, but it was time. He opened a new document and began to type. "Dear Maya, it's been 5 years since you died, and I'm only now learning how to live again. For so long, I thought the only way to honor your memory was to punish myself, to work until I couldn't feel anything, to save enough people to somehow balance the cosmic scales of your loss. But I met someone recently who reminded me that you wouldn't want that. You'd want me to laugh at terrible jokes and eat deep-dish pizza and call Mom more often. You'd want me to forgive myself for something that was never my fault in the first place. I'm working on it. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm sleeping 8 hours a night. I'm reconnecting with Mom. I'm even thinking about adopting a dog. You'd approve of that." I met a patient who's been through hell, and somehow, by helping her, she helped me. Isn't that strange? How healing works both ways. How sometimes the people we're trying to save end up saving us. I miss you every single day. I'll probably miss you for the rest of my life. But I'm learning that missing you doesn't have to mean stopping my own life. I can carry you with me, your laughter, your terrible jokes, your huge heart, and still move forward. I hope you're proud of me. I'm trying to be proud of myself. Love always, Marcus. He saved the document and closed his laptop. Tomorrow, he'd visit Maya's grave for the first time in a year. He'd bring flowers and tell her about Jasmine, about Rachel, about the life he was finally learning to live again. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Can't wait for dinner tomorrow. I'm making your favorite, pot roast. Love you. Marcus smiled and typed back, Love you too, Mom. See you tomorrow. Outside his window, the city lights of Chicago twinkled in the darkness. Millions of people living their lives, struggling with their own pain, finding their own paths forward. Marcus was just one of them now, no longer trying to be a hero or a martyr, just a human being doing his best. And for the first time in 5 years, that felt like enough.